Hi, I'm Garbreak1, and this is Midgardy RPG's cool crowdfunding show. Today I'm here with Ken Spencer from Rocket Age. How's it going?
Pretty good. How you doing today?
Pretty well. Why don't you tell me a little bit about Rocket Age?
Rocket Age is a retro pulp sci-fi RPG. It is a 1938 that never was and a solar system that should have been. It is rocket packs, radium, ray guns, fins, and chrome ships flying around the solar system, getting into adventures and trouble.
Awesome. So, Rocket Age has been around for a while on, I believe, its own unique system. Is that correct?
It's been a while. It was originally released in the Vortex system with Cubicle 7. I left Cubicle 7 a few years ago and bought Rocket Age. I created it for them. So I left, bought it out, lock, stock, everything, all the existing art, product, a couple thousand units of books that have been sitting in our living room, then a warehouse, and that sort of thing. And in 2014, Rocket Age won an Emmy Judges Spotlight Award, and we produced several source books and adventures in the Vortex system, and we're ready to find new fans. And we've adapted it to 5th edition.
Cool. What made you make the decision to go to 5th edition?
We looked at a lot of different systems. When we acquired Rocket Age and we started Why Not Games, one of our original goals was to bring Rocket Age to a whole new generation of fans. And part of that was to look at a system that someone has heard of. We
Yeah.
love the Vortex system. We really love it. And we're going to continue to publish Rocket Age in the Vortex system. But we want to reach more people. We want to reach new people, and we want to try to do new things with the setting. And we took a look at several systems, and it was decided that 5e was the one that would adapt closest to the setting and that wouldn't require as much of hacking the system to make it fit.
Cool. So, what sets Rocket Age apart from other sci-fi 5e things?
What sets it apart from other sci-fi games is that the setting is made so that you can have all sorts of adventures in it, but we're not doing a generic 5e sci-fi. We are giving you an entire solar system. Everything in it is something that you're going to be somewhat familiar with. You know what Mars is.
Vaguely familiar.
Well, our take on Mars is it's a red desert planet. It's the fourth planet from the sun. We start there with that common ground, and then we move on. So we've got a lot of depth to the setting, a lot of material, even in the core book. And we set it up so that that depth is easy for the GM and the player to use. Every location in the core book has a list of 3-story hooks. Every location in the core book has an NPC you can meet there.
Nice.
You can pop open Rocket Age and go right out of the book just fine.
That's incredibly handy. That's something I struggle with sometimes. The classic problem of, oh, cool setting. What do I do with it?
Exactly. And that was one of the design goals when I first started creating Rocket Age was I don't want this to just be a game that people read and go, oh, this is cool. I want it to be something that people take to the table and enjoy with their friends and they play.
Absolutely, yeah. So, what was hard to convert to 5th edition from the Vortex system?
Well, Vortex is a very cinematic system and it doesn't have even as much crunch as Vortex does, as 5e does. So part of it was how do we turn these sort of vague, nebulous, you can do what you want with it traits that characters have, that the species would have, that the locations have, into something a little more concrete for 5th edition gaming. And that required us to not just convert. We're not going from number 5 to number 4. We adapted the system to the setting and the setting to the system so they meet in the middle and create a fun game.
Awesome. So, it mentions that you have a system of psychic powers that aren't just like refluffed 5e spells. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So, psychic powers. Anybody could have a psychic power in Rocket Age. They're a new phenomenon for most species. especially for Earthlings. Some species have more of a experience with them, such as the Europans and the Venusians. But any character can have psychic powers. Even if your species rarely exhibits them, you could be that one or two oddities that have it. The way you acquire a psychic power is you have to give something up. And that something you give up is your, at first level, it's your stat bonus for your species.
Hmm. Interesting.
Now, in exchange, you get three things with each psychic power. You get a very minor stat bonus, less than what you're giving up, but you still get a little something. You get a latent ability, which is on about the same power level as a cantrip is in fantasy worlds. And then you get a more broad-reaching ability that you would spend psychic power points to activate and use, and that you might need to make a psychic attack roll. The target may need to make a saving throw, but it does more than your latent ability does.
Awesome.
And then at higher levels, where you would normally get a ability bonus, or if you're using the optional feat rolls, a feat, you can instead take another psychic power.
Right. So it's a very much yeah. It's something you have to build into. It's not quite your class, but it's a little bit almost like a secondary class. Is that what I'm kind of taking away from it?
It's more of a character enhancement. Um, so it's something beyond class, background, and species that you can use to help define your character. We describe for each type of psychic power, how does this affect a person's personality to be able to do this? What does it mean to you as a character that now you can do telekinesis? But it does grow with you. It's tied, each power is tied to the leveling system, and that as your proficiency bonus increases, your number of power points increase. And the powers have a free form aspect, so you can spend extra power points to extend the duration, extend the range, extend the targets, or even extend the base ability into something that does more.
That sounds really cool. One of my biggest recurring problems with 5e is that the spellcasting is boring. So it's nice to see a very distinct system. I know a lot of sci-fi things will kind of, I don't want to say cheat, but take the easy route out and just refluff things to psychic powers and call it a day.
That was actually we went through 5 different psychic power systems until we settled on the one that we liked. It evolved over time, over about 2 years of work and play testing, and then replay testing and scrapping it and trying again. And we got where we wanted to be with something that's different.
Yeah, it's a hard process iterating through all of the different possibilities. So, can you tell me a little bit about some of the species? Like, what's your favorite?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm a big fan of the lizard monkeys. Lizard monkeys are from Venus. They're the native species on Venus. The Venusians, and this is the inside the universe secret. It's explicitly stated in the book, but the people in the solar system or rocket age don't know this, is that the Venusians are refugees from the planet Eris, which is now the asteroid belt. The actual natives of Venus are the lizard monkeys, and they're small, 3-foot tall lizards that are very monkey-like. They have lived a peaceful existence. Sorry, that
Is that a cat?
yeah. She's a handful since I named one of the deities in Catterday after her. So
That's fair.
anyway, lizard monkeys. So when they have been experiencing a religious war, unbeknownst to anybody else, because a lizard monkey vocal apparatus can't make the sounds that other species use as languages. Everyone assumes that they're just animals, very smart animals. So your lizard monkey character could be the ship's captain's pet.
Yeah.
But you're actually a highly intelligent creature on a religious quest to go throughout the solar system and name and behold everything out there so it becomes real.
Huh. That's super cool.
They are a tough role-playing challenge because you're effectively mute.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have fun playing them. After the lizard monkeys, probably the one that I've put the most amount of work into and that are near and dear to me are the Europans, because they are both heroes and villains at the same time. They're from the moon Europa. Europans are tall, purple skinned, hairless. They have 7 fingers and 2 thumbs on each hand, which drives our artists crazy.
Yeah. Is that a thumb on each side or two thumbs?
They have a thumb on each side, so it's like,
Nice. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
European equipment has the extra fingers trait property, equipment property. If you don't have the necessary digits, then you have disadvantage when you use it. You
Makes
just don't
sense.
have enough fingers and thumbs to hit all the buttons.
Yeah.
So with the Europans, they have technology that's in advance of everyone else in the solar system, but they're paranoid, they're xenophobic, but they're also curious. So they say, okay, you can't approach any closer than this distance to our moon, or we'll disintegrate your homeworld.
Brutal.
Yeah. At the same time, they want to learn about what they call other lesser but respectable species.
That's a wonderful term.
Exactly. So what they do is they brain wipe a Europan, and they reload him with the knowledge he needs to operate, and then sends him out into the solar system to be another species, to learn their ways by acting like one of them.
Huh.
So the entire thing is based off my background as a archaeologist. So in anthropology, there is the participant observer technique, where you go to another culture and you learn their ways by living amongst them and doing the things they do and eating the things they eat. That's what the Europans are doing. So they may come to Earth and say, ah, I am on Earth. I am going to learn what a reporter does. Their only knowledge of that concept comes from movies and radio. So they will wear the suit and the hat, and they'll put the press badge, and they'll carry a camera. And then they go and act like a reporter, because that's how you learn what a reporter does. And then you understand something about humans. So
That's
I know.
amazing.
So those are two of the ones that they have a comic relief aspect, but they also have a darker aspect, because the lizard monkeys have a religious schism within them between those who think that the rest of the solar system outside of Venus doesn't actually exist, and they're the traditionalists. They've named and beheld everything on Venus. That's all that's real. Then you've got the second hatching, who believe that they have to name and behold the rest of the solar system. So you've got that going on. The Europans, you've got the emissary corps, and you've also got the European command for high command for conquest, who think that what they should do is subjugate the rest of the solar system because it's their right.
Yeah, it just makes good sense.
Just makes sense. They're lesser species. They should be doing what we tell them. But in the core book, there are 17 playable species. We wanted a creature cantina look to
That's
Rocket
fair.
Age.
One of the classic sci-fi like shots. Yeah.
Exactly. And 7 of those species are different Martian castes. So Mars is home to 7 distinct castes of Martians that are all distinct species. None of them can reproduce with each other and have viable offspring.
In that classic Barsoomian tradition. Yeah.
Very much so. The explanation for that is when Mars was dying, because the Martians got into a war with the Arisians, they destroyed the planet Eris, thus creating the asteroid belt. The blowback from that wrecked the climate of Mars. So Mars is dying. The ancient Martians genetically engineered members of their own species to be different castes to do different things.
Right.
And those are the castes we know today.
So each has like a kind of a role in the overall um, ecosphere of Mars, as it were.
they each have a role within Martian society and a thing they're supposed to do. And one of the struggles for playing a Martian character is: are you a traditionalist? Are you sticking to your caste, or are you breaking your caste rules and going off on your own?
Yeah, I can see a lot of cool role playing possibilities there. Speaking of all of the different planets and stuff, I know one of my players will give me shit if I don't ask. So
Sure.
is there anything on Pluto? Is Pluto still a planet?
It's 1938. Pluto is still officially listed as a planet.
Hell yeah.
The outer planets aren't covered. Well, they're covered, but they're not covered in a lot of detail in the core book, because the idea is that until we release any material that says otherwise, we want to leave that as room for the GM and the table to create their own stories. So if you want to say, okay, I want Pluto to be like this, then go right ahead. The hooks we give you is that there are faces on the giant faces carved in the ice of Pluto.
Nice.
So what's going on there? We give you 3 story hooks that give you ideas to do something with Pluto.
Yeah, I can certainly see I certainly have a couple ideas for what that could be. This sounds cool. Um, so how did you get into tabletop gaming?
Well, it was 1984. My father had just left the Navy and moved for the first time in my life to a civilian community, which happened to be a town of about 200 people in Maryland, in the middle of nowhere. There were approximately, I would say, about 3.5 kids my age in the county. And I was bored. I didn't have anything to do. My dad was a big Avalon Hill board game player, so I was used to the concept of these box games. And I saw this one in the back of a Conan comic book, and it said Dungeons and Dragons, and it was red, and it had a dragon and a barbarian on it. And I was like, that is for me. So I saved up my allowance. When we took our monthly trip 2 hours into town, went to the mall, went to the KB toy store, bought Dungeons and Dragons, and I've been playing ever since.
Nice. That's I don't think I've even actually ever seen the red box in person. That was long, long before my time.
I don't regret it, but I had the BCMI, the whole basic through Immortal set. And in middle school is when everyone was switching to AD&D second edition. Ooh.
Right.
So my group switched. I had moved several times before then, so I actually had people to play with. So my group was switching to second edition. That takes money. I'm like an 8th grader. I don't have any money. These other 8th graders wanted to play D&D and said, well, can we just buy your set off you? So I sold the entire set to them.
Oof.
Yeah, but at the same time, I just got 6 people into gaming.
Yeah, I mean,
So, and I
yeah,
walked out with, I think, like $30, which was the whole second ed set, Monster Manual, DMG, Player's Handbook.
yeah. Did you ever actually get to use the Immortal Rules? Because I've heard about them and they sound really weird.
I never got to use them. We never had a
Oh,
campaign get past about 22nd, 23rd level.
that's longer than any of mine have ever gone. So you know.
We played every day after school.
Wow, that sounds incredible.
Well, I mean, it was an 8th grade game,
Yeah.
so it wasn't high art by any means, but we had a good time.
Hey, that's the important part, man. Not everything has to be, works of high culture.
No, no, we had a good time, and we did a lot of in those days, because we just had the basic rules and the BCMI. We did a lot of, oh well, this is a module for first ed. Well, we'll just adapt it. We'll
Right.
just make it work. Um, and then we got into Star Frontiers and Traveler and BattleTech, and sci-fi is my big thing. Fantasy is the close second, but sci-fi is my number one.
Yeah, fair enough. And I can certainly see those kind of retro sci-fi influences all throughout the product. Obviously, it's most of the aesthetic, which I am a huge
Yes,
fan of. I love fins on everything,
we put fins on things that don't need fins just because they have to.
and a lot of like Art Deco kind of iconography as well, which is always nice to see.
Yes. Yes, indeed. That has been the style of Rocket Age since, well, we first published when I was still with Cubicle 7. John Hodgson was the art director at the time at Cubicle 7. And we worked closely on getting the Art Deco and the look. Um, we first met and talked about it at Gen Con in, I think, 2012. And we were walking to an Indian restaurant in downtown Indianapolis, and we walked under that Art Deco overhang. I don't know if you've been to Indianapolis to Gen Con, but
Someday.
there's this where Illinois Street and I think Market Cross. There's this Art Deco where four tramways come together, and so you've got this roof over the intersection. And it's got this Art Deco look to it. And we stopped and looked up, and we're like, that's the underside of a rocket ship, right?
Oh, that's a cool origin story for that kind of aesthetic. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to bring up while you're here?
Our Kickstarter is running along right now. We end July 4th, which happens to be the third anniversary of Why Not Games forming.
Nice.
Why Not Games? I own Why Not Games. I own Rocket Age. My wife and I are the main driving force behind things. She does business management, graphic design, layout, that sort of thing. Our gaming group is her, that child who just snuck past. My son, he's 10. He'll be 11 soon.
He was successfully under the camera.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. I ruined it by mentioning he went by. But it's a gaming group started by my wife and I and our gaming buddies. And we founded it with the idea that we want to make the games that we want to make. Several of us are involved in the industry as freelancers. I still freelance write. And we want to have the chance to make the games that we want to do in our way with our friends. And that's what Why Not Games is.
Well, heck yeah, man. And you're about 2/3 of the way through the 2/3 of the way to funded, rather. Something like that.
I haven't looked at it since.
Gives me 3,500 out of 5,000. So yeah, like 68-ish%.
Yeah, I think I'd say about 67%.
Yeah.
So yeah, we expect to be funded today or tomorrow, and then after that, it's stretch goals. Our first stretch goal is an adventure by Ed Greenwood, who's a fan of Rocket Age. And after that, we've got some previous Rocket Age writers who've done some adventures for us. James Spawn, Gabriel Garcia. We're bringing in Jonathan Thompson from Battlefront Games. He's a buddy of mine. He's going to write an adventure. Andrew Paragon from Cubicle 7 is going to write an adventure for us. And I'm going to write a few things.
That's a lot, man. Oh, I do have one more question. I do have one more question.
These stretch goals.
Yeah, I do have one more question before we call it a night.
Sure.
How you have a ton of adventures and supplements and stuff out. How hard is it to convert that to the 5th edition version? For like Gravity Rando DM.
Well, the hardest part is with Vortex, there's a lot more seat of your pants GMing and playing. It's heavily driven by a story point system, which gives players narrative control. So the hardest part in converting it for a game master will be saying, okay, so what do I need to set the DC at? What do I need to define instead of letting it be defined by the players? Unless you would rather define it, have your players define it. We actually have an inspiration point system in the 5e core book to give players narrative control. If you want, it's optional. It's not baked into the classes and species.
All right. Well, that's super cool. Well, it's been great talking to you.
Been great talking to you too.
And best of luck on your Kickstarter. And for everybody,
thank you.
Yeah. And for everybody who's watching at home, have a good night.
Good night.